training session, great feedback scores, and full attendance. Sounds like a win, right? But fast forward a month and employees are struggling to recall what they actually learned. Does it again sound familiar to you? Most training programs fail not because they lack content, but because they measure the wrong things. And in this episode, we are diving into training ROI. What really matters, how top companies measure success, and why the usual approach doesn't cut it. Let's be real. Showing up doesn't equal learning, and yet most of the training programs still celebrate attendance numbers like they prove the impact. Think about it, how often do employees leave a session feeling inspired but struggle to apply what they learned the very next day? So that's because the traditional metrics like attendance and post training satisfaction surveys don't tell us if trainings actually work. So, Jaya, what are your thoughts on this?
Exactly, Prachi. It's like judging a movie by how many tickets were sold instead of whether the audience actually enjoyed the story or understood the message. I ran into this issue at a company I was working with where we designed a leadership training program. Attendance was nearly perfect, and the feedback right after the session was glowing. But 3 months later, we did an internal survey and found that managers were still facing the same leadership challenges. That was a major wake up call for me. That's when we decided to shift our focus to three core areas that actually measure training effectiveness. That's knowledge retention. So, with that, we understand if employees are retaining what they learned or not. Then, skill application is number two, where are they putting those skills to use on the job or not? And final was business impact. Is the training translating into real results for the business? So if you're not tracking these, then you're essentially guessing at ROI of your training programs.
So, let's just break this down. If attendance isn't a useful matrix, what actually proves training impact?
Well, there are three core KPIs that companies should focus on. One, knowledge retention. Take cybersecurity training, for example. A company rolls out a comprehensive program, but a month later, half of the employees are still falling for phishing scams. So, this is a clear sign that retention isn't being effectively measured. To track retention, you can use follow quizzes, state learning techniques, or even peer teaching sessions. These methods can all be managed on a single platform like Amit, which becomes a one stop shop for your learners. So, one tech solution I've seen work particularly well is AI powered learning platforms that track retention over time, not just immediately after the session. And this helps ensure that knowledge sticks long term. Then number two is skill application. So think about a sales team completing negotiation training, but seeing no improvement in deal conversion rate. So that's the gap between learning and real world application. To measure skill application, one can track performance over time, do skill assessment, or get feedback from managers. And there are many tools by integrating them, real world practice simulations, where employees can test their skills before even applying them on the job. So I saw this firsthand when we added post training role plays in a sales program I worked on. And we had the reps close a deal using the new techniques, and within weeks, the conversion rate shot up. Nonetheless, the next one is business impact. So let's say you have a leadership program with full attendance, but no improvement in employee retention or engagement. So how do you tie that back to business results? So the key is linking training outcomes to business metrics. This could be anything from customer satisfaction score to employee retention or sales numbers. So smart platforms can even track long-term impact by integrating training data with business performance metrics.
So many great points, Shaya. So I've seen this too, where a training program looks successful on paper, but the business results don't change. And one of the biggest mistakes that I've seen companies doing is that assuming employees will figure it out after the training ends. But without structured reinforcement, even the best training fades. And that's why I feel like tracking the real world application is very crucial. And this is why platforms like Airmeet focus not just on delivering content, but ensuring the ongoing engagement and the retention side of it through the analysis and the stats that we have. So now moving ahead, this is where most companies struggle, Jaya. They want to track real impact, but don't know how to extract meaningful data from their training platforms.
Actually, I'd say that's why having deep training analytics is a game changer. With platform like Airmeet, companies can analyze engagement in real time, not just if someone showed up, but if they actively participated or not. And then measure long-term learning retention, see if employees remember concepts week after the training. Then it correlates training data with performance. So learning isn't happening in isolation, but tied to a business goal. Instead of guessing whether training worked, you get clear, actionable data to refine future sessions and prove ROI.
I think that makes so much of sense. And one of the biggest mistakes that companies make today is confusing awareness with action. So just because employees know something doesn't mean they are using it. So Jaya, what are your thoughts on this concept?
Exactly, Prachi. This is such a critical point. Too often, companies think that if employee knows something, they're automatically going to apply it. But that's not just the case. And that's where the action versus awareness framework really comes in. So let's break it down. Awareness is when employee understand a concept or an idea. They can explain it. They get the theory. They can talk about it in a meeting or a training session. But action is, on the other hand, when employees actually apply that they have learned in a real work situations. It's about translating that knowledge retention into behavior, decision making, and tangible results on the job. Without reinforcement, most trainings will just stop at that awareness phase, and employees walk out of a session feeling informed and motivated, but the next day they're back to their old habits because there's no real follow up to encourage them to apply that they've learned. And that's where the gap starts to show. Now, the best companies, they don't stop at awareness. They build structure, follow ups to make sure that the training doesn't fade away. Here's what it looks like. So, manager led discussions. Manager can lead regular sessions where they discuss key takeaways from the training and encourage employees to reflect on how they're applying those ideas. This helps bridge the gap between learning and action. Then the next could be on the job challenges. So these are real world tasks that test employees' ability to apply the concept they've learned. It could be a project, a problem to solve, or a new responsibility they need to take on. So these challenges force employees to actually use their new skills and see firsthand how they work in practice. Then the next, which is very important, is peer accountability. Group coaching or peer accountability programs can be game changer. When employees are held accountable by their peers, it creates a sense of responsibility and encourage them to stay committed to applying what they've learned. And trust me, Prachi, this way the learning doesn't sit in a notebook or in the back of the mind. It becomes part of their everyday work, which drives real measurable business results. And that's how you move from awareness to action and ultimately the impact, of course.
So well explained, Jaya, and I really love the ideas like the manager-led discussions on the job challenges and especially the peer accountability that you just shared. So moving ahead, let's make this more real the way we do in all our episodes. So can you share an example of a company that cracked the code on training ROI?
Absolutely. So I worked with a Fortune 500 company that had a leadership program with 90% attendance, but the leadership effectiveness scores remain unchanged. So here's what we did. We added AI-driven simulations that allowed leaders to practice making high-stakes decisions in real time. And we implemented reinforcement challenges where managers had to apply key lessons and report back. We tied training outcomes to performance incentives as well. So leaders who applied the skill effectively were recognized and rewarded. And the result, it was a 46% improvement in leadership effectiveness score within just 6 months. So I'd say it was a game changer for us.
Definitely seems as well. 46% improvement is a game changer. And so, to the audience, if your training program is still relying on attendance as a success matrix, it's the time to rethink. The real measures of training ROI are knowledge retention, skill application, and business impact. And if we want a training platform that not only deliver results but proves its impact, that's where airmeet comes in. So with deep analytics, engagement tracking, and I would say built-in reinforcement tools, it's designed to help your teams measure what truly matters. So training isn't, in today's world, not just a checkbox but a business driver. So any final key takeaway, Jaya?
Training is an investment. It's not just about showing up and feeling inspired. So make sure you're measuring what truly matters, whether it's retention, application, or business impact, so that you're not just checking a box, but driving real measurable results for your business.
Thank you so much, Jaya. And thank you so much, everyone. See you in our next episode of the Playbook.